No, well, that's what I'm saying,
But using the words of Hillary at this point, what does it really matter?
Yeah, no question.
ask their mother, ask the parents. Let's say it's done, let's go after. She gets back in town and goes on. It's a relative.
Well, welcome. Tonight, we're going to look at the world from a not-so-liberal point of view. We have our favorite conservatives here. Why don't we start with introductions?
Ed Bertarelli, longtime Republican activist in the state, chairman of the Republican Town Committee.
Chris Moore, member of the FinCom.
We can start international, national, state, or local.
Well, why don't we start local and maybe
Work our way up.
We'll keep our viewers
Yeah.
glued to their seats.
Well, you've been pretty active on social media, talking about the ELL program. Thoughts?
Well, first, what really concerned me is that we're now hearing stories that with the coming of the spring and summer season, they expect another surge of people to be crossing the border, although they guesstimate it won't be as severe as last time, which of course is an uneducated or an uneducated guess. I guess my question would be, from a point of view of Milford, is how many, given who we got the last time, how many more undocumented or illegals we're going to get this time that are going to appear on the school system. And of course, the impact on that would be, of course, on our spending and our taxes. I know you two guys are both in the Finance Committee, so you can talk more about that part, but the fact is that there seems to be a pipeline, through word of mouth and whatever, that a certain sector of the people who make it all the way to the border across thousands of miles, supposedly unaccompanied children, which is amazing. I doubt they're unaccompanied, but we could get to that later. Then make it up here, and with an impact, or all sorts of impact on the community. Milford has traditionally been a town that welcomed immigrants of every kind. At the turn of the century, when many towns turned their back on even welcoming Jews and Jewish people into the communities, Milford's doors were open, and we had a very vibrant Jewish population in 1900 and the early part of the century. Other towns didn't even allow that. Our Armenian population, our Polish population, obviously Irish were here or there, and the Italian population.
Hasn't that been one of the strongest planks of Milford?
It has, but the question is in that day you worked, made money, and survived. Today there's a whole panoply of benefits that between free health care and free a lot of other things, welfare, EBT cards, and so on, driving, and so on, that allow I think sort of abuses. I'm not going to mention I know a landlord, and she's very frustrated because when she's getting calls from people who don't speak English or barely speak English, and generally in the community that we're talking about. And she says, well, we have to run a credit check. Or no credit check, I'll pay cash. And they walk in and they have literally pockets full of cash. And you're wondering what's going on. Obviously, if people work hard, they make money. But the question would be, what's really going on here in the system? And that's something we really have to address. And I think at the first selectmen's meeting that Will Kincaid appeared at, and Selectman Buckley and Murray zeroed in on it, saying that the task force that's investigating illegal housing and whatever should investigate this. I guess my question would be, which I've asked Will and Buckley, is if 50 students appeared in the Milford schools in September, where are they living? Are they living in safe conditions? Are they living in apartments where they share on a rotating basis? What are the living conditions they're in? And do we have to really look at the task force in a way where they actually do visits which are unannounced rather than announced, because that would be my question when I immediately heard, no offense to the 50 children, because we have to make sure they're safe, is when 50 students arrive, what does 50 students mean as far as other people involved? So I think those are a couple of questions we would have to ask, you know.
But using a famous quote, at this point, what does it matter? They're here. These kids are now Milford residents.
Well, it matters, as we know, unless we're independently wealthy as people, that it matters financially in our community, and it matters in a quality of life issue as to the conditions they're living in, and it matters just in a whole range of ways. And it also matters because, for better or worse, it may impact how other residents feel about living in Milford, and that's a fact of life, which we have to acknowledge.
Absolutely, because as I heard the same thing about the new influx that we could possibly have, and let's be honest, they're gonna land in the same 7 towns as they did the first time. And the other thing that bothers me is that this is phase 2. And we're worrying about addressing the first time. We're gonna have one on top of that, and I'm telling you, there's gonna be phase 3, 4. This isn't anything that's stopping anytime soon. So not only do we need to Band-Aid what has already happened, we need to prepare ourselves for continued influxes in those areas that cost us that type of money in our education, in our social services. So not only do we have to address what's going on now, we have to plan for the future, that if this is going to be a growing problem, we need to address how we're going to find the money to spend to be able to,
And I mean,
to take care of this.
realistically, you got the kids here. So year one, there's a hit. I mean, John Fernandez brought up a couple things. One, that year one, if they showed up in August, like, we had 17 kids show up for the high school, we didn't get paid for them year one, because they do a tally, and then you get so many dollars per middle school, elementary. So we got $9,500 coming.
But it's
for
the,
all
it's the-
15.
but it's the special services
Yeah,
that are
besides.
involved with these people that is what's really what the cost involved is, and that's why you say it's a one-time hit. I beg to differ. It's actually a continual hit. As we're doing the school budget right now, I mean, they're applying in a 2-phase between this year and next year, $510,000 just to address the ELL program, and that is a cost that is going to continue forever. So it's not just a one-time. Every single year, it's an extra $500,000 of Milford
But
town
Chris,
money.
we're going to get some
that's gonna go.
compensation, according to John.
Well,
But
we
but
hope.
again,
Right? If
but
you
again,
get-
but again,
We hope.
it's a
But hold
different
on.
it's a
If you
different
got
issue
50
than
or
money.
100 kids,
If it were just money, it would be an issue, because we could throw money at a lot of problems. But the other question is health issues, vaccinations, general condition of health, and also just the fact is that it's bothersome to me that in most towns that we regard, neighborhoods in Massachusetts and other places are on the upswing. But there are neighborhoods in Milford that are on the downswing. And this perplexes me, because they're the neighborhood that I grew up in, the Water Street, Oliver Street area where we used to walk to school. And it's personally bothersome. I didn't move here from another town and live, in the upper hilly part of town, whatever. I grew up in the Heights and walked to school. And it bothers me when I see homes that were occupied by working families who either own them or were connected to people, now being owned by slum landlords and speculators who are basically making money off illegals, and that the quality of the neighborhood between trash collection and everything else, litter all over backyards, has gone down. And that's perplexing.
but let's look at that as a separate issue in my mind, because
Why?
whether or not we have, because Ed, whether or not we have new kids coming in, that affects the ELL program, absolutely.
Yep.
But the conditions that Milford residents are living in, whether we have these kids or not, we ought to be looking at that as a separate issue.
Well, but it's we're not talking about kids. We're talking about parents or families involved with the children. We're talking about a whole issue. It just isn't kids, because 50 kids didn't come here and they don't live in an apartment by themselves.
Right.
They live with adults. And what I'm trying to say is that there's a whole group of people out there who are making money off this situation. And there are landlords who are unscrupulous, who collect rents by the week. This is the reality. We can choose to ignore it. Sometimes when I look at town meeting, and I go to the town meeting and been a member for 25, 30 years, I sit there and I listen to the discussions, and I'd really like to take all the members and take them on a little tour of downtown and show them the reality and the problems that we have. No offense at any particular person, but the fact is sometimes we're in a a failure to acknowledge some of the issues we
There's
have.
no question, because when I speak to people who work the night shift, police officers who are on the night shift, and they tell me about things that I couldn't believe, that they say, well, at certain hours of the night, you will see a large population of people form and they're walking down the street. And I didn't understand. And they said, that's when the beds
Shift.
turn over.
It's the
shift
shift.
change. You now have to leave because someone else is coming to sleep in your bed.
And that clearly,
And-
it violates the occupancy
But
and the
again,
Board of
to
Health
me,
things.
that is an overall issue. Whether these kids are here or not,
But
that-
you can't.
it may exacerbate it. The
but-
kids will
that's-
exacerbate
Yes,
it.
but the kids
Exactly.
didn't come here because they wanted to come here. They came here because there was a support group here for them. Where would not, when you talk about kids, you're already behind the 8 ball because you're going, oh, kids, okay.
Yeah, they'll look at you and say you're a Grinch.
Okay, but the point is, we're talking about the whole picture. To take the kids in out isolations is ridiculous. As far as the stretch on other things, the stretch on our police and fire and rescue squads and everything else, that's another hidden cost. So that's the question, and the question is, what is the future of Milford going to be? And this is where I think I'm encouraged that we have new leadership, and we might try and answer those questions and maybe get in a dialogue with the Ecuadorian community and other communities that are here. I know we did somewhat with the Brazilian community when they were here.
And the Portuguese community
Well,
when
but
we first came.
that's
and the Irish
no,
and
but
the Italian.
that's in the past, and the Portuguese community has been in immigration for a century now. We're talking about now with this sudden influx
Because we're at a tipping point, to be perfectly honest with you. I mean, this town right now could go either way. I really feel that way, and I feel strongly about that. Because there is going to be a day in the future that either people are going to say, you know what, I want to stay in Milford, I love Milford. Or there very well could be a day 5 years from now that people say, you know what, Mendon looks good, Medway looks good. You know what, honey, let's move.
But you know something, Chris? You bring up some points where you say we have to be careful because a lot of the recent residents of Milford don't come from areas which have been vaccinated for certain diseases. So TB all of a sudden
question.
reared its ugly head. Now, to me, it's very simple. You set the rules to safeguard the population, and you say, if you can prove you've been vaccinated and there's no obvious health issue, then great. If not, you're being vaccinated before you come to school.
Yeah.
I don't have any problem. To me, that's not anti-immigrant. I'm
Well,
protecting all the kids that are in the
It's
school.
to say anything is anti-immigrant, first of all, there's a question. There's immigrants and there's immigrants. And to equate an immigrant from Portugal or Italy, and there are very few coming from Italy now, but from Portugal who come here in a process, go through the arduous thing of the green card, the expense of everything else, to equate that with the immigration, the illegal immigration is an insult to the illegal immigrants, because you're basically saying, hello, I'm spending $3,000 or more
I
to
mean,
go by
insult
the
to
rules.
legal
In
immigrants.
years.
Right.
That's
Yes.
right, exactly. But Chris is right. I know when I spoke to people when Ryan Fatman was running for the Senate, I'd be around, and I knew a lot of people who had lived in Milford. Their families own businesses here, whatever. They don't live here anymore. Live in Northbridge, Uxbridge, whatever. And they were, to a person, Fatman voters because they didn't like what Milford had become. They wish they could have stayed here. But this just isn't about illegals. It's about just generally the quality of the housing stock in the town and the fact that there's an element in the town that they regard as, as negative. And if we're going to get to a stage where, this is why we have to be careful. It isn't just about kids. If we're going to get to a stage where you take some of the developments that we've built in the town, when these people turn around and the kids come home from school and go, gee, I'm really not getting what I need to get because of the limited resources we have, and resources are being spent on tutors and extra programs for people who are not playing by the rules, but have to be educated because it's the law, and if they're born here, they're automatic citizens, and there's a limited pool of money. What do people say? Do they say, well, I'd rather go to a school system where there's less of that, so that more money's directed at the kids, or what? Because it's everyone's right to choose to live where they want to. And I'm just concerned that, as Chris said, we're at a tipping point. There's certainly things we can do to make Milford more vibrant and that, but these other things have to be addressed.
Then realistically, shouldn't we put our money where our mouth is and say, if the housing rules are being ignored, okay, you hire another housing inspector.
Absolutely. Yep.
You know, I mean, I look at it to say the people who've come here put their heads down, they work, they don't cause any problems, they follow the rules. I've got less of an issue, you know, and I mean, there's a lot of Portuguese families we knew that, I mean, my house had a dozen families that we had to sponsor for 6 months, you know, so till they got on their feet and went out and got jobs and,
But,
you know.
but they were not, again, I have to equate, it just, to equate people who came here and played by the rules to people who came here illegally. You know, we have to go back a little and go, when the Board of Health, which was, by the way, took a very great leadership role in trying to correct this, but how was it that Milford became an area where we had dozens and dozens of illegal rooming houses that had sprung up? The word gets out. We're not in the circles where the word gets out to, but the word gets out, wink, wink, nod, nod, do what you want in Milford, okay? Because you buy a house, turn it into a rooming house, basically, and no one will say anything. But when your town gets that reputation, okay, and there are towns in the state, and no offense to Taunton and a few others that were magnificent towns in the day, and now you have towns where they literally have to have a tactical squad and a local police force. You have to look and go, where is our town going to go? Is it going to go in a positive way, or is it going to become less desirable for people to come and live here?
Because you bring up a good point, Al. You did do that. You were surrogate families to these people coming over. And they, as Ed says, they did it the right way.
You were sponsors in a way.
Yeah, we were sponsors. You had to sponsor them.
And then these people did not go on to be a big financial drain on our
Oh,
community.
absolutely not.
So that's the other thing, because an excellent point that Ed brings up is that when it comes back to, and I hate bringing it back to education again, because right now, because everyone is so young that's coming in, that's where it's landing, is that the middle class students, that's where you're losing. Because the school committee and everyone else is saying, we need to apply funding to this area. Well, I'm sorry, if you're putting it there, you have to be taking away from somewhere else. And you know where they're taking it away is from the middle of the road kids.
Yes.
And that is another reason why people might say, maybe it's not because these streets are dirty or there's this or there's that or whatever. It's, I'm worried about the education that my child can receive here, because I don't think that they're getting all the financial resources and effort given to them.
I mean, I'm walking down Main Street and I see a group of people at 2 in the morning. Don't I have probable cause to go ask, where do you live? Why are you?
Pat, not in Massachusetts, you don't. So,
I mean,
I mean, you
makes
don't.
no sense
You
to
don't
me.
have probable cause to, according to what the chief has said, because of quote profiling.
Yes.
You don't have probable cause to stop people who are likely don't
Ed,
have licenses.
I'm not saying green people or pointy-headed, long-haired people. I'm saying
People out after
humans.
doing-
Yes.
It's 2 in the morning, Main Street, Milford.
Yes,
I would submit to you that typically that is not
especially if they're children.
an active place for you to walk. How many times have you taken the baby Morans
Yeah.
out for a stroll at 2 in the morning?
Absolutely. Kids, get up. We're going out for a
We're
walk.
going out for a walk every night. You know, come on.
No, there's no
I
question.
mean, to me, there's got to be a way of saying, I'm not going to target, you know, green people, you know, long-haired people.
Well, this
I'm
isn't
just
targeting
gonna-
anyone. This is just the fact that what
Here-
are people
here are the
doing
rules.
wandering the
Yep.
streets?
There's no question.
We don't want rooming houses. We know they're dangerous because, you know, you think about, you got a 30 amp or a 15 amp circuit running into a room. It's meant for, you know, your bedroom. A light,
Yeah.
a radio, maybe a TV. It's not meant for a cooking
But
plate.
I think what we're failing to see here is that there's a sophisticated network of people who, people didn't make it from Ecuador to the Mexican border by luck. okay?
Absolutely.
Okay? They were smuggled to the border.
Especially young kids.
Exactly.
And even adults, because the professional smugglers charge people. Then there's a network within the country, and then I'm sure there's a network in any community to basically say, well, the group, the government, whoever it is coming to inspect or doing this or that, because you can't basically say, please, sir, may, whatever. You know, we're going to have to get into a more proactive mode, exactly like you're saying. What do we have people at 2 o'clock in the wandering the street? But again, that goes to the greater issue is, what does that say about our community as far as when word about that gets out to the people who pay significant property taxes, who play by the rules and go, you know, I could live somewhere else and not have to deal with this. And that's
again,
the question.
Ed, I turn around and say, isn't that an enforcement issue?
And it
Well,
is,
it
and
just
that's
is an enforcement issue. It's also an issue. It's a fact of that the people are here and living in these situations.
These kids, I mean, immigration is a federal issue. We can't deport them to Hopedale or Bellingham, right?
Well,
Can't deport them to Rhode
well,
Island.
first of all, that's you know, that's silly to even say.
Yeah.
You know, it is
So-
a federal issue. So when these kids land in Milford, they are now our
Yeah,
kids.
but we're not. But we're not. Let's get off kids, because it just isn't kids. The kids didn't come here.
Well, but
and
Ed, even if it was people, if the
Well-
federal government moved people to Milford, right? Adults, kids, whatever.
Well, we
they
were
are now ours.
We were assured when people came across the border, Deval Patrick said at the time, which is another issue, which we could get into a litany of the things that he left undone, that
We
none
wouldn't be affected.
None were not coming to Massachusetts. Well, I guess the 7 or 8 communities, and let's not just let's
Well,
just.
but I mean, it could be as many as 30 across the state.
Yeah.
That are affected. But it's 30 out of 330.
well,
and then 7 or 8 that really
Then
got
7
the
or
brunt
8
of
that
it.
got really
There's no
hit.
question.
But isn't that why John Fernandez is trying to put through the circuit breaker?
yes, but again, part of it is it just isn't money, and it just isn't whatever. It's the whole quality of life issues in these communities that are involved. It just isn't kids. It just isn't whatever. It's the quality of life issues that we see in neighborhoods in Milford. You see in neighborhoods all over.
But Ed, to be a little bit of a devil's advocate, then enforce the rules.
And that's
Well,
why I think that is a very
what
good
it-
point, that the using of the task force in the enforcement of the rules is paramount. And that's why this task force that's been set up by the town has to be more proactive.
I mean, where are these apartments where people are apartment sharing and shift share? Where are these houses that's being done? Who are the landlords that own them, and what are they getting for rents? In other words, this is an important thing to go right after the landlords, because the fact is there are some of them who are probably making double rents because they're occupying
Oh,
the
yeah,
apartments.
absolutely.
You know, we do not have control over the demand. But I submit we have control over the supply.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, if you turn around and you say, if Morin Studio didn't pay their taxes this quarter, there'd probably be a mechanism that we could come to you and say, Mr. Morin, you owe us
Yeah,
to follow these rules.
Absolutely.
But I think the thing is, this issue requires a dedication and a laser sight beam to it, that people talk about it and then forget about it, talk about it. It's not on the radar screen the way it should, but it's at our peril, I'd submit, because I think and I hope with new leadership in the community, we'll see that young people as well who are looking to the future of Milford also see this as a peril. And no offense personally to the people who are coming here. I mean, I am certainly disturbed that this illegality is involved and that these mechanisms that people would send children to the Mexican border from Ecuador, thousands of miles away, and then maneuver them to whatever part of the country they're. Now, to say that this isn't a problem all over the country is not the case, because it's a problem all over. In the South, it's a problem all over. Sure. Because frankly, there are a lot of jobs that go unfilled, and there are a lot of people out there who fill these jobs.
This underground network, and I believe if it's easier to live here than there, people are going to move there. But if we start enforcing the rules, wouldn't that pipeline then also send the information up saying, hey, you got to live by the rules if you're going to live in Milford?
Yeah.
Well, the question is, for example, how do you and under Governor Patrick, a lot of the rules were relaxed about registrations and other things. The legislature passed rules, but they weren't enforced. In other words, the registry was told not to
Yeah, but
enforce
Ed,
them.
housing is Milford.
Yes.
We can't blame.
No, but
The
I'm
state.
no, but it's Al. These are part of a whole picture. Okay, how are people who don't have auto licenses driving trucks, driving cars, driving Lexuses, driving Ford F-250 trucks? Okay, they had to buy them somewhere. Well, the very fact that they don't have a license should sort of negate the fact that people should be I mean, unless of course we go to the next level, which is just give everyone licenses, because the fact is we're being judgmental because we actually ask people for those. Now, my other question is, if you're a driver in Milford and you get in an accident with one of these people who are here with no license, what's your status?
Or insurance.
Yeah, no.
Yes. So now we know most insurance companies, are they be a question we'd have to ask the police department. Are they surcharging the Milford driver who gets in an accident because he's not involved? But then I hear that most of these people have insurance, but they don't have a license. So it's an interesting concept.
You take a step up. This week's been national politics.
Yep.
Been busy. We heard Mark, first, you got Rubio.
Yep,
Yeah,
you've
Mark.
got, I think, three or four Republicans, Tim Cruz, Rand Paul, Marco Rubio, and obviously Jeb Bush is indicated he's going to run. He hasn't formally announced.
Scott Walker out of Wisconsin.
Yeah, Governor Walker.
Chris Christie still that same dance. He's in New Hampshire right now.
Yeah.
I don't think he's in New Hampshire for the weather, and
He's not looking at the leaves.
he's not. Yeah, he's not peeping right now. But
Yeah.
So now, on the other side, you've got a coronation, right?
Well, you've got a
Yes.
governor who actually had Governor O'Malley, former Governor O'Malley of Maryland, who announced back in the day. That's probably a move more to be VP than to be president. And then you have Hillary. And
What's the real issue? I mean, I'm sitting here, and I'm listening about email versus email, and to me, seems like a smokescreen. I don't care about how she handled
Well,
her
I do.
emails.
I
do.
very
Hold
much.
on.
I
hold
do.
on.
What?
I don't.
Finish.
Let me
Well-
finish. What I care about is that it seems it's a continuing trend of the Clintons doing what the Clintons want.
no matter
not
what the
following
rules
the
are.
rules.
Yep.
Exactly.
The email, Ed, doesn't bother me.
Well,
the concept
if
that
it would bother you that if someone literally destroyed, when she was pressed, literally destroyed every email that she had, and then first she said she was going to divide the business emails from the government, with her doing the dividing,
But would it be-
rather than a third
would
party.
it be any different if it was written? See, my point is the email to me isn't the issue in my mind.
Well,
The written documents that she destroyed,
It is
written documents.
if there's a link, which there seems to be a link, not just with the emails, with the Clinton Foundation soliciting money from countries where
And see,
she went to,
here-
and that's a pattern.
Here we go
Yeah.
again.
Yes.
That to me is the fundamental
But the-
issue.
And the fact that they were destroyed. I mean, who destroys emails when you're
Unless
like
you
you
have
said when you're
something to
oppressed?
hide. Unless you have something to
these
hide.
It's
aren't
not
nice
even who
notes.
destroys. When Congress says they're coming after them,
And she ignored them.
and
for
you
3
do
weeks,
away
by
with
the way.
them.
Yes.
Because I love the answer, well, you can ask for them, but they've been destroyed.
Yes, but
I-
again, it bespeaks an arrogance that she knows that there's certain media organs, the Boston Globe, the New York Times, will only attack her when she's not left enough.
Yep.
They won't attack her when she's doing what
But
she does
is it-
best.
Isn't the real issue, in my mind, the reason I say I don't care
There's a
about the
pattern
emails,
with them.
It's the pattern
Yes, no
of
question.
From
can
Arkansas,
we trust you?
From Arkansas
Exactly.
to the futures that they made money on, the fact that she actually said with a straight face that she left the White House, they were broke.
They're broke.
And I call it broke, maybe compared to a Saudi Arabian oil prince,
yeah,
or,
possibly.
or
Al Korea.
Al
But-
Korea,
Right.
yes. I mean, but
Married with children, no money.
But it is.
it's-
It's just it's a pattern that has been going for years, and it just
But isn't that the real issue? I mean, I know the Republican leadership is picking on the emails.
What?
But isn't it really trust?
Yes, but the point
no
is,
question.
the lack of trust is based on specifics.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
No, I'll give you
well,
that.
Let's fill in the details. And so we just didn't say, well, we don't like her, and she, she's not very personable and whatever. But on issue after issue after issue after issue between she and in the White House, they found the papers. I think one of the first scandals there was when they fired the travel staff. That was one of the first ones. Then she found the papers linked to Whitewater on a desk, which she didn't have before. Then there's...
Well, she has her top aide who is not only working for her,
Yeah.
but is also working for a political consulting firm as well at the same exact time.
Realistically, you look at the foundation. And again, I look at Hillary as a very intelligent woman, a very driven woman.
No question.
This is not a dumbie that just said,
Well-
I didn't understand the rules.
No, then she's more culpable because she understood
Oh,
them
yeah.
fully. And the fact that the Obama administration didn't notice that she's using, was it a Hotmail account, which is no, but again, you're in the White House. You're in a situation where the world situation with security and cyber attacks and every.
no question. You're getting an email
Al,
from
Do you
Queen
really
Clinton
believe
at
that nobody
hotmail.com.
noticed?
Al, I'm just stating the fact that what they said.
Right. But I mean,
okay, all I can say is
first
what they
time I
said.
heard was when
Yeah, so.
I have to carry 2 phones because I can't have 2 email accounts on the same phone.
Oh, yeah. Because I have 6 email accounts, and they're all on my one phone.
But
okay.
to me, the issue in my mind is the arrogance and the integrity. Is this
question.
somebody I can trust?
They'll lie right to your face
Well,
and not care.
As someone said, the reason they left Arkansas was they'd stolen everything that there was to steal there.
You-
Number one. But the question was that their opportunities were minimal. Now he ran a masterful campaign.
Absolutely.
He defeated President George H.W. Bush, and we saw what happened after that.
Let's take a look on the other side of the aisle.
Yep.
Marco comes out with an introduction. I'm running. Do you feel comfortable with what he was saying?
I'll walk it back a bit, not the particular candidate. We didn't have very good luck with a first-term senator in President Obama, okay? I think we've had better luck with presidents, whatever, at the governor level, because they've actually run something.
Yes.
The Senate is
CEOs.
notorious for not doing much of anything. As you know, their pace is basically the turtle pace. The House enacts things, the Senate debates it, and whatever. And you have a whole group of people, John Kerry on down, who think a lot of themselves, and a lot of senators who think a real lot of themselves. And the fact is, I don't think they make very good leaders because they've never been tested like Walker was tested in the union
Yes.
thing, or
That was big.
well, Dukakis was tested, and obviously the things in the state, the economic downturn affected him. But it's the trial
Ed,
and error. And
Walk me through the candidates. How comfortable do you feel
Well,
with what is being presented today as the alternative to Clinton?
well, we don't know if there's going to be another alternative.
Understood, but if today you froze time,
Well, again, we might be saying that our next show we've unfrozen it, but
Yeah.
Yes.
I think they each have a segment. Rand Paul is a theoretician from the libertarian point of view. Okay, Ted Cruz is a Hispanic candidate. People forget that, who upset a.
do I care? He's a candidate.
Yes, you do, because the Democrats have been saying for years exactly what their candidates are. It's about time we do.
Yep.
Marco
Marco
Rubio's
Rubio,
the
a
son of
Cuban.
immigrants.
Yep.
Okay, Hispanic candidate. Jeb Bush, his wife is Hispanic. Okay, these are all important issues in appealing to a
But
population.
now Marco came out and he said,
Yep.
Hillary is Miss Yesterday or Mrs.
Well-
Yesterday. From yesterday, leading us to yesterday.
Yep.
With policies from yesterday.
Well-
Everything. Now, that whole logic, does that apply to Bush? Or is this going to be,
No,
hey,
but
this is the
it's
smart
certainly,
Bush?
It's certainly the same strategy that Obama used on her. Let's get real. She thought she was going to march into a coronation, and Obama out-campaigned her using the Democratic committee rules in different states and made her a Miss Yesterday. Now,
question. He used the young
Now,
people.
I'll say it because Hillary's probably 2 years older than I am. Yes, she is Miss Yesterday. So that's
And
no
that's why you look
offense
at the
to
crop
anyone.
of all the Republicans, and the Republicans have made a focus on this to get younger,
Yes.
to get the more
Well,
vibrant,
let me ask you a
young
question.
people
Could Rand
involved.
Paul be the candidate that would save the Republican Party from itself?
No,
I don't think so.
No. But again, Rich, what do you mean save it? Let me
Yeah.
just go back. You asked about Miss Yesterday. Let's look at the top leadership. Harry Reid, who's retiring in his 70s. Nancy Pelosi, the butt of many jokes, 75 or older. Their successes in the leadership are going to be just as old. It's funny from a party that says it's the progressive party, the young people's party, the minority party, the different populations that are not represented or oppressed population, but the hierarchy of the 70-year-old lock is there. Republicans have an interesting mix because you would take Rand Paul, Ted Cruz, Marco Rubio, even Jeb Bush, New Jersey, and then Governor Walker. They're all. I don't think there's one that's 50. Maybe Jeb might be 50.
I think he's the oldest of the group.
Yeah. So the question would be how they connect and how the Republicans solve the issue of the social religious conservatives versus the libertarians versus the business crowd.
Because they have a challenge with them. Every single one of them has a challenge to prove how they're the conservative ones, because they need to court that part of the party.
Unfortunately, yeah. And then
They
what
need to
happens
prove
is
how
You know what I don't
conservative they are.
understand? I mean, when John came on the show, he talked about how if he wins by 10%, it's a mandate to him, because he looks at there's 30% on the left that are always going to vote left.
Yep.
30% on the right, always going to vote right. You're fighting for the 33% in the middle. So if you win by 10%, that means you took 20 to 10, 2 to 1.
well, a local election, which is state reps. I look at it a little differently.
So do I.
But I also want to go back to one other thing, which Hillary is also portraying. Interestingly, she's talking about the rich. Hillary Clinton.
Is she looking in the mirror?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
I just want to make sure.
Thank you, Al.
Exactly.
This is the poor, broke
Yes.
woman
Yes.
who gets $250,000
Yes.
per 1 hour seminar.
They left Arkansas to get to the presidency. Luckily, they got a free home.
Yeah.
Then when they left the presidency, friends collected and bought them the house in Chappaqua, which is a very nice point. But when she ran for Senate, the lady who's saying that she's the champion of the downtrodden got the highest percentage of money from Wall Street of any candidate in that election cycle. And the $900 million that she says she's going to raise, she's not going to go through federal campaign financing.
That
because
won't
it
be
would-
a
it would
Ralph
hold the-
Nader, Ron Paul,
and-
$10 at a time.
It won't
No,
hold her
it
back.
will not.
But the linkage of Bob Rubin and the other people in the Clinton administration who did very well under the Clinton economy and made more money, there's going to be a massive fundraising machine that will basically
Now-
go out there.
Let me just get back to, okay, Rubio Cruz, to me, and I may be totally wrong, but they feel a lot more to the right than a Bush.
No, Rubio
Or
not
a
necessarily. Cruz
Cruz,
and
I don't
Rand
know,
Paul.
Ed. When I heard his coming out speech, it sounded pretty tight about, increase the military.
Well, yeah.
But
Well, he's
now, what I
certainly the Foreign
wonder
Relations
is,
Board, so-
they always say you got to get that far right.
Yeah, but your
of the
announcement,
Republican.
what you say in your announcement and what you say through the campaign is basically, it's
It's ever changing, especially too with
Yes.
who you're in the candidate pool with. Also changes.
I guess my
and
point
as
is-
people fall off.
Aren't you supposed to be trying to get the middle? Because the people on the far right, the religious, ultra-conservatives, let's say you ran a very liberal Republican.
they
Who
would
they-
stay home.
And, essentially vote for Hillary?
No,
I just don't think- I think they would- they wouldn't donate, they
It's
wouldn't
not as
vote, yeah.
it's more complex than that, but it's the same problem that Hillary would face if she was actually challenged by a real left-wing candidate,
Yes.
a Liz Warren type candidate. But I don't want to use Liz Warren because I think that was just a smoke screen that was put up, whatever. But if there was a person out there who could do to her what was his name, who ran for as an independent, defeated basically George H.W. Bush.
Oh, Perot?
Ross Perot.
Yeah.
Ross Perot had a major grudge
Sure.
No
with
question.
George
And
Bush.
he cost
And
an
if you
election.
look at the turnouts and the elections in the key states, he got enough suburban votes that he threw the states.
That he threw it over.
Absolutely.
Threw it over.
But
And
now-
that was, now, if there was a left-wing candidate, there are enough serious people who sincerely believe in the agenda of the left and don't like Hillary because they know she's
Hillary.
Hillary and that would be an interesting election if someone ran. But I don't see that happening. The Democratic Party's too disciplined for it, and I don't see that there would be a Nader type or
There's
a
no
Green
question.
candidate to come
That
forward.
party is going to make sure that she is going to take this from poll to poll.
But see, this sounds like the silliest logic in my life to say, I'm a conservative. I live out in a square state. If you run somebody not very conservative as Republican, I'm not going to vote, and I'm going to help the liberal
No, but again,
Democratic
I just don't think they're gonna be as
I
active.
think we're on a discussion here that isn't. We're holding the Republicans up to the standard we don't hold the Democrats, and I've tried. That's what I've just tried to say about if
No,
there were
I'd hold them the
left-wing
same standard. If you ran a conservative Democrat, and they had the choice, which is still in a lot more liberal,
But we're not.
Yeah.
But
you think
see,
Massachusetts would ever switch and go Republican?
Hey, we just elected a Republican governor.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
we've never
well,
done that
Yeah, not
in
since
Congress.
not since Reagan carried Massachusetts twice. That's the last Republican. The thing would be we're not. It's hard to talk about candidates when we know what the fully fleshed out field is and what kind of issues are going to
exactly.
come up. What issues may come up about Hillary, the emails,
No question.
campaign accounts, whatever,
Yeah.
that may make her less inevitable. You know, we're talking about she's already been coronated. A lot of people have thought that about a lot of different things in life and ended up going, oh, okay. So I guess what I'm saying is I'll look at all the candidates, bring them forward, and see what their point of view is.
We'll
And
see in a couple months when we get back together if we open up the
Yeah.
screen and see a different view.
No
We
question.
start looking outside the U.S. Obviously, some things going on in Iran, some things going on in Cuba, but in Iran, you're hearing how the Iranians are feeling they can negotiate from strength. And
Yeah.
I hear
Yeah.
two sides of it, Ed.
yeah.
Side one is the reason they feel they can negotiate is that the Republicans in the Senate wrote a letter undermining our president.
That's baloney.
Hold on. The second part I hear is our president undermined himself when he told Syria, here is a line. Using chemical weapons on civilians, you cross that
Al.
line, I will take
Al,
action.
here's.
But hold on,
when
let me
you
just
know-
finish.
Okay.
When they crossed the line, it was like Jimmy Carter-esque. Oh,
Let me
I'm
draw another
sorry.
line. This line will be this one, this one,
I'm
over here.
sorry. So
You
Wh-
saw
which
very.
way do you
You
believe?
saw very clearly when he dealt with Putin,
Yes.
which is a different part of the world, but the same mentality of the leaders, exactly what Obama wasn't made of compared to Putin, okay? But if you took Obama's Middle East policy, and
we have one?
and I'll
Yeah.
just say it right
It's
now.
written on a napkin, I think.
It's been an unmitigated disaster. Afghanistan, Iraq, he pulled out too soon. He didn't leave any presence there. Afghanistan has basically turned the clock back to where it was. Yemen, we've lost. We had a pro-American president there who risked his hide to help us with drone raids or whatever, and we did nothing when they were deposed. And Iran, through their surrogates, is now basically getting to where the point they might try and topple the Saudis, because the Saudis are the sworn enemies of the Iranians, as are the Syrians and other countries, the Jordanians, the Egyptians. So, yes, Iran is flexing its muscles through surrogates, through terrorism, and whatever. I think the thing that was most appalling to me was that Obama spent a great deal of time trashing Netanyahu because he came to Congress to talk, okay? But interestingly, he refuses, and he said this, someone asked him, are you going to make Iran denounce the fact that they think Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth as part of this treaty? He
Well,
said,
he just said no.
he said no. So that to me shows you, number one, that it's very important that the Senate review the treaty, because between John Kerry and Barack Obama, there are two people who are probably trying to look at a Nobel Peace Prize rather than a sincere effort to keep Iran from having a nuclear bomb. Now, whether that's possible or not.
What can you do, Ed? I mean, how old is your oldest?
Yep.
8.
Okay, so 10 years from now, if the option was to send them more in to fight, is it worth it?
Right now, the way that the plan and the situation has been executed over there right now, absolutely not. I'm not sending somebody over there when we don't even know what we're doing. That's the way it is right now. It's crazy. We got Fidel Castro saying what a great honorable man President Obama is.
But the U.S. sucks.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, that
explain this.
speech, what I
Yeah,
took
mean,
away from that speech is,
Yeah.
here's a great guy who grew up from poverty and is really a good guy, but the U.S. still sucks.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, wait a minute.
I'm sorry.
I'm confused here.
Anytime Fidel Castro
Well,
thinks someone's a good guy,
I
have apprehension.
Let's take a step back.
Yeah.
What do you do with Cuba?
No, but let's just
Until the two Castros, the two brothers are gone, that wall's staying up.
But then you have Castro Rev 3. I mean, if you
Not
leave it
really.
alone.
Not really.
No.
What'll happen there is, but just let me go back one thing to the what do you call it, to the Middle East.
Yeah.
When Obama refused to basically say that was one of the cards to basically say we will not destroy Israel, and someone said no, we won't say we will do that. That to me is, so what are we talking? What are we doing? What is John Kerry doing except going and finessing an issue? And the question would be, do we have any confidence? I won't use the word trust, but do we have any confidence that with John Kerry and Barack Obama signing any deal is the deal? Now, if the Iranians have figured that out, I'll use the word that's not a word, irregardless of what some Republicans said, they knew what Barack Obama was made of when he did the thing with Syria.
Yes.
Don't cross this line, bing, they crossed.
That's why Iran does not like this bipartisan bill that's going to allow Congress to
Well,
review
yes.
any plan for
Aren't
30
they
days.
at the table because of the sanctions?
Yes, they
Yes,
are.
of course
Exactly they are.
And they're arguing the fact that, fine, once we say we're going to decommission, we want the sanctions removed immediately. Where I am of the mindset, until everything is completely done
yeah.
and it's sealed with a bow, then I'll remove
Now
the
Isn't
sanctions.
that what we did in North Korea? Just out of curiosity. Didn't we start the aid because they promised they wouldn't?
Yeah,
We've
exactly.
got
We got
nowhere
burned
with
by
them.
them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
we got-
but
and we
are
got
we getting
burned.
anywhere with Iran?
And we
No,
got
but
burned by them.
the tragedy about Iran is not to sound as the war party. The Iranian people are not anti-U.S. in the least. If you've seen tours that have gone over there and whatever, they're an enlightened people, an educated people. As you saw what their own government did when people tried to rebel and get some rights, they murdered them. So the hierarchy that's controlling this
And the
country
Ayatollah and
is,
that,
again, tragically is here. And I'll segue to Cuba. For 40, 50 years, we had that hierarchy controlling Cuba there. But the pressure now is, with the internet, with everything, the same thing that happened in Eastern Europe, with the internet, with the younger generation, I don't think people are happy to be living where literally there are no jobs and there's no future. And the fact is, American companies are licking their chops at the fact of what we could make in profits from Cuba if we could go down and rebuild. Because I think if you knew once the floodgates opened, the dominance of America being 90 miles away, the United States being 90 miles away, with the linking, there is the issue of property of some of the people who were deposed or whatever. I think that's going to be where they're the losers in it. But the fact is, there's going to be enormous pressure within the Cuban population.
Didn't Reagan prove to us that on a level playing field, democracy works?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you think about it.
Well, it's more than democracy. It's actually what works is the consumerism and the American way
but
of
that
life.
to me-
And that's why, and even now in today's age,
Capitalism in general.
YouTube, YouTube, Facebook, all
Right.
these people in these communities in Iran and in North Korea, where there's still filters and they're trying to control it. These
But Cuba's
kids are,
90 miles away. That's the
these
thing.
kids are seeing the way life is in
Yeah.
a democracy, and it's making it even harder to keep them under your thumb.
I mean,
As I always found, the hardest culture to me was the DDR, because you were right there over the other side of the Berlin Wall, over an
you're
incredible
talking about East
border.
Germany.
Yeah.
Yes.
When
Just
you look
so
at the
people, yeah.
DDR and you say, okay, you can't block all the television.
Yeah, exactly.
I can see, and as much as you keep telling me that there really aren't any stores full of food that anybody can go in. There really aren't all these benefits.
Exactly.
Eventually,
the
weight
travesty
of communism,
Yeah.
to me, will sink itself.
But the travesty was that in that process, tens of thousands of East German people were shot to death, leaving, and we can never escape the barbarism that they communicated.
When we went through Checkpoint Charlie the first time,
Yep.
it was a sobering experience. It was frightening
Yep.
as compared to, I'd fly in and out of Moscow
Yep.
to all the different
Yep.
capitals in the East Bloc, but
And you see the crosses put up where people were shot by snipers and whatever.
just taking that bus ride
Yeah.
was sobering.
Well,
But now,
And it should lead us in-
shouldn't we say the same thing will happen to Cuba? You open the door and you let people taste a little bit of capitalism.
it's already happening. The fact is that Europeans are going down there by the thousands. They've been going down for a decade or more.
Canadians.
Yeah.
And
There's no question.
Italians, Germans, French, on all sorts of package tours or whatever. And I think this has increased the pressure because remember, Raul, here's Fidel, here's
Yeah.
Raul, and after that, there is a group of hangers-on who have made a great deal of money, but how long are they going to be around
Yes,
when they
exactly.
see there's pressure from young people? And the fact is,
no question.
you know, Cuba brags about having top-notch medicine. Basically, have abolished
Well, I mean,
illiteracy.
you gotta give Castro credit about the illiteracy.
By the way, I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm just. Let me finish. That's true? But the point is, that there are no jobs for those people, and that's the tragedy. Is that in a system that where, and I can't imagine that the fact that we are so close, that our dominance. I mean, the population of Florida is, I believe, triple what the population of Cuba is. So
But
it's
Ed,
going to be
you
interesting.
hit a fundamental point. Cuba's always had the most highly educated unemployment pool known. These people, it went from an island with high illiteracy
Yep.
to a very educated population.
But a
Yep.
regressive
nothing to
economic
do.
system. Yes.
Now, you brought up something earlier when you were talking about communism, and obviously it changed me in my mind to think about something that people are talking about, and it's not front page headlines, but what's going on with Putin and the way that he is pushing his way and flexing his muscle. I mean, every other week you're seeing about how Russian spy planes are either diverting our reconnaissance ships, or their bombers are flying toward the UK, or they're selling missiles to Iran.
I just went through a course this last weekend at Holy Cross about Putin.
Yep.
There was an entire lecture series on Putin. And the one
Former
slide
head of the KGB.
that hit me the most is when they showed Putin with his shirt off and a leopard cub,
Yes.
kitten, cub, whatever they call a
Yeah.
small leopard. And right next to him, they showed Barack Obama with a Bichon. There were no words. But
There's
when
no
you're
question.
looking at the Russian macho image,
Yep.
you could see how, okay, this guy is playing with a leopard,
Well,
Yeah.
and the U.S.
And
is
there's
playing
no
with a
question.
puppy dog.
The other thing, though, too, which is amazing, is the way Putin has stayed above the Russian mafia and the groups that are very, the lawlessness that's in the society, and the fact that the Russian countryside, nothing's really occurred there as far as any kind of development. I mean, Putin's channeled a lot of the mineral wealth, the oil wealth, and whatever through his friends and whatever.
But this guy was the head of
The KGB.
the KGB.
Yeah.
Is that like the Boy Scouts? Is that what
Yeah,
it is?
I'm
that's what I
sitting there
thought.
saying, okay, I may be part of organized crime,
Yeah.
but am I going to go and tweak the former head of the KGB and hope that he forgot?
Actually, a gentleman did, and he was shot on a bridge
Yes,
about a
yes.
month
You
ago.
remember
Right,
Yes,
that's what I'm
So-
saying.
And then they've killed point blank shot female journalist in the head, so they're not sexist about who they decide they're going to
So, you know,
murder.
there's
kill
like
anyone.
when we used to go to Moscow, I took in, it would be 10 cartons of Marlboros. Because it was accepted that to get anywhere with a
Yep.
taxi,
Yep.
I was better off. Of course, you got to the border and the guards looked at you and said, contraband. I said,
Yeah.
no, I smoke.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
then you ever figure out to smoke a carton a day,
Yeah, but they
I
probably
think you
do.
gotta have,
They probably do, though.
well,
Yeah.
no, because 9 cartons made
Yes,
it through
yes, yes.
Yeah.
the inspection.
Well, yes, of
right?
course.
So there were rules.
Share and
that
share
said
alike.
Exactly.
I wouldn't trade on the black market because I'll get in trouble. So I paid $1.30 a ruble instead of getting 3 rubles a dollar. I wouldn't sell jeans
Yeah.
because it was accepted that Okay, if you're doing cigarettes, nobody cares.
Yeah, but again,
Isn't that what they're doing with Putin?
Yeah.
He's kind of drawn a line and said, unlike our Syrian line, if you cross it,
in
you
the
get
old,
shot on
in
a
the
bridge.
old, in the old Soviet Union, the quote organized crime or groups that were, outside of the communist system were the minorities, like the Jewish, some of the Jewish population, the Armenian population, the Cossack population, the Ukrainians, who had no, they had no influence in the government. So naturally, they maneuvered under the system to make things work. So if you really wanted good food, you went to a, rather than the state restaurant, which you know what that would be like. But
Because he's under some serious pressure right now. Because of the price of oil, the way it's gone down.
Because of the economy.
The economy. He hasn't had to really face that before. And in order to put that down, he is flexing what the Russians always want, a strong
Isn't that what we're seeing in Venezuela?
well,
When the oil was $110 a barrel,
Yeah.
the head of Venezuela was all full of himself, and he
Hugo
was
Chavez.
giving
Oh, yeah,
out,
Hugo.
you think of old Hugo,
Yeah.
he's giving out a lot of money to a lot of countries, and whether they liked him or
terror
not,
and
No
giving
question.
out, yes.
whatever it was, they liked him. Now
Yep.
all of a sudden, wait a minute, we're talking about making nice with Venezuela?
No, not anymore, apparently.
Now-
now they're on the bad boy list.
Now they're
Yeah,
on the bad boy
exactly.
list again, but for a while we were starting to,
But you think,
I know.
think of though the countries that have to bear being neighbors of Russia: Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania. Okay, they were pummeled for decades after World War II. There was a concerted plan to basically make them Russian by moving Russians in there. You look at what the Ukrainians have put up with. Okay, I mean, Stalin murdered millions of them after the in the famine, and now what they're putting up with the separatists. It's interesting that the Germans have basically are shameless in this, because Merkel there has basically said to the Ukrainians, "You're not getting anything because we want Russian natural gas and whatever." But when Putin seized Crimea, what he seized was apparently 1 trillion cubic feet of gas,
gas.
Yes.
reserves under there, and
do you believe for a moment it was about the ethnic Russians?
Oh, it was
that-
about the
it was a
deep
money.
history.
No, it was
About
a
the
money.
deep
It was a
history.
money
I
grab.
mean, come on.
But if you look at
I
the-
just went to Krasnodar 4 times last year, and these people are proud of their Cossack
And where was-
heritage.
yeah, okay.
Southern Russia.
Yep.
This is Cossackville.
Yeah.
When you go to
But the
Tbilisi,
Cossacks and Putin would necessarily be.
no,
No, of
but
course not.
they had their little sphere.
Yeah, yep.
And as long as they stayed,
Yep.
when we were in Tbilisi, they were great people.
What about the Russian Muslim minority? Putin's got to be very careful with that, because he's got a giant group of people there along the countries there and
Yes.
along
But
the.
they're quiet. Out in Tashkent, they're
Yes,
not,
but they're quiet. But the fact is he can't.
he can't
He can't be
antagonize them.
the
Exactly.
Putin that he is
No
in the
question.
Ukraine.
No.
But it's interesting. It's interesting to see is of world leaders, he's probably one of the more effective, given the hand he's been dealt with.
Absolutely.
Amazing.
And we'll see what happens when we get back together in a couple months.
Absolutely.
As always, we could go on like this forever.
Yes.
It's always too short, but I do thank our 6 loyal viewers
Oh,
and
more than
1
that.
or 2 liberals that
More
will.
than that.
That's right.
Well, there's got to be a liberal or 2 that wants to hear
I was
Uncle
just-
Eddie's opinion.
I hear people at Hannaford saying, "Hey, great show." So.
So as always, thank you for listening. May God bless. May tomorrow be a better day at the center of the universe than today.
Yes.
Good night, all.
Thanks for having us, Al.
Excellent.
Not too long since I've been home. Been running all my life just